what do you expect from Saturday's talks? And are we speaking about direct or indirect talks? Because Iran said today that it's going to be indirect talks.
Well, President Trump said direct, so I'm going to follow the lead of my president. In terms of expectations, I mean, listen, there hasn't been any formal negotiations ever with the Trump administration, right? Even in Trump 1, we didn't have talks. So I think that this is going to be really important. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I think there's a lot of, listen, we have to just get together and try to find some common ground, some understanding. There's a lot of distrust between both sides, right? I'm very clear of that. So I think everybody needs to take a deep breath, right? Let's have some initial meetings and see if there's a way to find common ground to do what the president wants to do, which is to find a peaceful resolution and a negotiation to these really tough and difficult problems.
Iran has been weakened massively in the last few months, from Hezbollah to the fall of the Syrian regime, to Iraqi militias, to other parts of the Middle East. Do you think this is the right moment to force its hand into a comprehensive agreement that maybe include nuclear program, but also its interference in regional affairs?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be right now. I mean, I think this is an issue that we learned in Trump 1 was an issue that you just need to deal with early, right? So that's why you saw within the first couple weeks of the second administration of President Trump that he went back into the max pressure campaign against Iran. It was important, again, he said at the time that it was important for him to try and get a negotiation going, trying to get a deal going. But yeah, the last year and a half has been devastating for the Islamic Republic of Iran. I mean, I think they've really been exposed. You've seen militia after militia drop, right? That all of these groups that were dependent so much and thought that they were protected by the Shia crescent. Well, you know, a lot of the leaders of all of those groups are dead. The groups are broke, and Iran did nothing to save them. So if you're making decisions and calculations about who you want to depend on, I would look at the past year and make and hedge accordingly.
With President Trump's moving fast to resolve conflicts, is there a timeline or a time frame, or is there a deadline for these negotiations to produce something, or else go to the other option?
You know, what a great question. We definitely feel the urgency in the Trump administration. As I've mentioned, our administration is really focused on outcomes and deliverables. And there's a lot of business people in our administration, and we like deals. We know how to get to deals. We're not focused on a lot of the process. I think that we're in a hurry, so to speak, this time because we've been there for 4 years. You know, one of I think the opportunities of having, or the learning opportunities when we were out of power for 4 years, is to say, okay, what will we do differently? What will we change? And so the last 4 years gave us the opportunity to really rethink about our policy and how we would pursue things. You know, unfortunately, we never knew. I knew I would disagree with the Biden administration on their foreign policy just because of how I am ideologically. I don't think any of us expected everything to happen the way it did. You know, starting with August of 21, the fall of Kabul to the Taliban, and the just disastrous and embarrassing exit of the United States. A lot of us felt real shame in what happened and how that was executed. And so I think when you look at that and then fast forward just 3 months later, you see Russia invading Ukraine. And then of course, about a year and a half after that, you see October 7th happening. And so the last 4 years, we have seen war and chaos and tumult around the world, especially here in the Middle East. So yes, when we came into the Trump administration, we're in a hurry. We have to be in a hurry because there's been nothing but war and devastation and weakness over the past 4 years. So you know what? We have a lot to fix.
The EU has said that the long-term solution for the Houthi problem, who is Iran-backed also, has to be political. Do you agree with this assessment?
Well, listen, in the short term, the problem is that we don't have freedom of navigation and freedom of the seas because the Houthis have been able to shoot at European ships, US ships, both military and commercial. And we felt that it was important to fix that we were not going to tolerate a terrorist group who would shoot ballistic missiles and drones at U.S., again, both military and commercial ships, and restoring freedom of navigation and shipping and trade and commerce was squarely in America's interest. You know, as it relates to political dialogues, I commend my friends in the EU if they would like to take that on in Yemen. I don't think that that's our strategic military objective, but of course we applaud anybody who wants to pursue political dialogue, and that's clearly always the long-term solution. But we're not focused in the Trump administration on picking winners and losers. We're focused on restoring confidence and restoring the ability of the U.S. Navy and our commercial ships to sail anywhere in international waters that we'd like to go.
Great, thank you. Moving to Lebanon, the first period of the ceasefire expired on February 18, and everyone was expecting that a permanent ceasefire would be set in place. But we have seen violations, we have seen targeted assassinations, and we have felt, or Lebanese have felt, that Israel has an upper hand or a free hand to attack targets in Lebanon despite the permanent ceasefire. In your opinion, what gives Israel this free hand? Is there some kind of an agreement that has been agreed with the previous U.S. administration to have some kind of a freedom to act against targets in Lebanon?
Yeah, and listen, in the cessation of hostilities, it's clear that the onus is upon the LAF and upon the Lebanese government to disarm Hezbollah completely in the south. That's really important. Obviously, there's obligations going back to almost 20 years ago from 1701 that we expect the Lebanese government to fulfill. I think it's really important to note that we've had a change in administration. We've had a change in policy in Washington. We are the Trump administration. We're not the Biden administration. Our friends and partners in Lebanon, we're going to be there to assist and support them. We're also very sympathetic to the position of our Israeli friends that they're never going to go back to an October 7th situation where their people in the north are left vulnerable, where they're in a situation where rockets are in the homes of people in Lebanon, and that you could just shoot rockets at will into northern Israeli villages. That's not a reality that they're going to ever go back to, nor it is a reality that we would accept for them either. So remember, we're very clear-headed about this in the Trump administration. Hezbollah is a designated terrorist organization. Hezbollah has American blood on its hands. It's not something that we're going to tolerate. However, our hope, our desire, our ambition is to work with the LAF and the Lebanese government so that they can take on these challenges themselves, because the only way that our friends in Lebanon are going to have peace is when there's a strong state, strong security apparatus, strong military. And so that's why we want to do everything that we can to strengthen the state, because that is the long-term solution for peace for the Lebanese people, and we deeply care about that.
We have seen how the Abraham Accords have been very successful despite all the tension, despite the conflict in Gaza, despite all the hardship. Do you see Lebanon as part of these accords in the near future? Or is there a timeline for these negotiations to start, for example?
Well, listen, going back to Abraham Accords, I was a part of that very small team. I played a really small role in the Trump administration on Abraham Accords, and it's just wonderful to be here in UAE. What did we see happen in Abraham Accords in Trump 1? We saw a leader here in UAE who was willing to take enormous risk, who was willing to stand up and be bold and be a leader for the sake of peace. He did something that I think you and I didn't think I would see that in my lifetime. I thought I'd work my whole life on trying to get peace deals for Israel until UAE and Bahrain stepped forward. It had been 26 years since Israel had had any sort of peace deal. So I can't underscore how important it was that the leadership here decided to take bold and revolutionary change and to stand up for peace. So listen, history and fortune, they favor the bold. So I would say, of course, we're very concerned with being able to do the important things to get the cessation of hostilities right in Lebanon. But this goes for everybody in the Middle East. The Trump administration, we're going to work together with our friends, our partners and the allies to solve problems in the Middle East. But the days of solving problems in the Middle East where all the Arabs get together and then Israel's not at the table, right? Whether it's Gaza, whether it's Lebanon, whether it's Syria, whatever the situation is, Israel has to be integrated into those discussions and into those decisions. We obviously understand that the leadership here in UAE, the leadership in Saudi Arabia, that they have demands and things that they would like to see for the Palestinian people. We also, President Trump has articulated a better future that he's wanted for Gazans. Don't forget, in the Trump administration in January of 2020, we put out a peace deal, and we were able to, Jared Kushner worked on a peace deal that got Bibi Netanyahu to agree for the first time. It was the first time a prime minister of Israel had agreed to a Palestinian state. So don't forget that the Trump administration has been committed to this principle for a long time. And so it may seem naive, but what my hope is that at the end of these 4 years of working for President Trump, that throughout the region, throughout the Muslim world, that we have more people, more countries that are willing to step into Abraham Accords, that are willing to take a stand for peace and not take a stand for war and for hatred. Again, I would just say that history is going to favor people who are bold, and the people who want to be followers and not leaders and just wait on someone else to make the big move, you'll be remembered as the small man that you are.
How can Gulf countries assist or support the U.S. in achieving its strategic goals in the region? Like, for example, having a deal with Iran, ending conflicts in Gaza and other places?
Well, as you know, I used to live in the Gulf. I lived in Saudi Arabia, and I've been in and out of the Gulf for a very long time. It feels like home for me coming here. And so what's really exciting in the Trump administration is how closely we're working with our Gulf partners and friends on, I mean, every issue around the world, not just the Middle East, right? Look at Saudi Arabia, where they've been hosting talks between Russia and Ukraine for us. So what we have really talked about a lot in the Trump administration is how do we look at a problem set and how do we solve it with our friends? You know, when I'm working on Lebanon, for example, I'm on the phone with Saudi, with UAE, with Qatar, with Kuwait, and talking and saying, where are you guys? Can we do this together? You know, we want to move in concert with our friends and allies. You know, we've always said that America first didn't mean America alone. And I don't know if there's any greater, example of partnership on foreign policy issues right now than here in the Gulf, right? Every issue around the world, China, Russia, Ukraine, you know, everything here in the Middle East, we're working those issues through our Gulf friends, through our partners. And I think, you know, so much of it, it's interesting. There's so much, the mentality is very similar. The ease of doing business and working together is very similar. And it's really refreshing to do diplomacy here with our Gulf partners, with UAE, with Saudi and others. It's just sort of, I breathe a sigh of relief whenever I come here. I really do, because I know that it's the same mentality as President Trump. The mentality here is to get a deal, to do a negotiation, to get resolution, and I think that that outlook on how you do governance, that outlook on foreign policy, is very similar to what we try to do in the Trump administration. So I'd say to everybody in the region, around the world, sometimes people get jealous. You know, when the United States has a really close relationship, if you want the same relationship and partnership that the United States has with UAE, for example, then get on board with us. Help us get a negotiation. Help us get a resolution. UAE helps us get deals done, and that's why we're here. They're a good friend. They're a good partner, and I'm proud to be here.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.